Welcome everyone to this wonderful session with our incredible partners at the American Immigration Council and Welcoming America's Gateway for Growth Challenge. My name is Joe Simperman. I'm the president of Global Cleveland, where we strengthen our city by welcoming our world. We are absolutely thrilled to be here with two thought leaders, international advocates for immigration integration, and people that Global Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, and the state of Ohio call wonderful friends in Asma Issa and Nan Wu. We last year were fortunate to be able to take part in the American Immigration Council and the Gateway for Growth Challenge. And the challenge is a competitive opportunity to receive valuable research support that ultimately helps us improve immigrant inclusion in our community here in Northeast Ohio. As the report will make clear, and as you'll hear during this presentation, immigrants play a critical role in our region's economy. Immigrants play a critical role in our region's success. Immigrants play a critical role in our region's prosperity. And as the son of immigrants, I can tell you our community is infinitely better because of the people who come to Northeast Ohio from all over the world. We are blessed, and we know it. This study supports what we know to be true. We must continue to embrace new Americans, not only to drive our economy forward and upward, but also to build upon our legacy as a welcoming city here in the heartland. Global Cleveland is committed to ensuring that all immigrants have the opportunity to grow and thrive here, and for them to be the beacons of light to people all over the world to tell them that yes, Cleveland and Northeast Ohio is for them too. We are grateful to Gateways for Growth for the incredible and informative research that they're about to share with us. Please join me in giving a warm Global Cleveland welcome to Asma Issa, Manager of State and Local Initiatives, and Nan Wu, Deputy Director of Research for the American Immigration Council. Asma?
Great, thank you so much, Joe, for the kind introduction. We are so happy to be here to provide a report on the research report that Global Cleveland is launching today on new Americans in Northeast Ohio and Cuyahoga County. And I will pass it over to my colleague to allow her to introduce herself before we jump in.
Hi, my name is Nan Wu. I'm the Deputy Director of Research at the American Immigration Council. Really happy to be able to walk you through the key findings from our research report and happy to answer any questions you might have about the report. I'll pass it back to Asma for the presentation.
Great, thank you so much, Nan. So I will just take a second to screen share my slides. All right, thank you everyone for joining, and we really appreciate everyone's interest in this research. Again, thank you to Global Cleveland for this opportunity. Me and Nan are both really excited to talk about this research that the research team has been spending months putting together the data and putting together the findings of the report, and just to cover what is motivating the interest on this. So I do want to just let everyone know if you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A function, or we will also have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So whatever works best for you, everyone. Okay, So jumping right in, New American Economy, we were a bipartisan research and advocacy organization looking to change the narrative about immigrants in America. And so we were started about 10 years ago, and our work we uses original research to quantify exactly how immigrants are an asset at every level of our economy and at every level of the community. So we use this narrative to bring together leaders across cities, states, and the business community. This month of 2022, in January of 2022, we actually merged with American Immigration Council to form a new American Immigration Council. So this new organization, with a merge of the original New American Economy organization and the American Immigration Council, will provide a full suite of programs that no other single organization offers currently. American Immigration Council was established nearly 40 years ago as the hub of research, policy, and advocacy for 16,000 immigration lawyers of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. And we will be focusing on pulling together all of the work that we do in terms of research and our programming and making sure that we are able to assess and support all of the needs of immigrants, from protecting a robust set of their rights to secure their place in American society, to providing real and meaningful access to counsel and to exercise those rights, to supporting and ensuring that immigrants and their communities are welcomed and that they can succeed economically, socially, and culturally. And then also working on showing how immigration benefits all Americans through original research, policy analysis, and storytelling. So I'm just going to give a little bit of background on our state and local initiatives team. So this team and this work has been around for about a little bit over than 7 years at this point. And so we were really born after comprehensive immigration reform fell apart at the federal level. And we saw this real desire from state and local leaders to be more proactive in approaching immigration within their own communities. We work in over 100 communities across the country, from cities as diverse as Grand Forks, North Dakota, to Dallas, Texas. But where we really see a lot of traction for our research is particularly in the Midwest, where we know population growth has slowed and workforce shortages have been a real challenge. So the reason we are here today is to discuss and present the findings of the Gateways for Growth research report that Global Cleveland is releasing today. So one of the ways we support local communities is through this program, Gateways for Growth Challenge. This is a competitive challenge that is jointly managed by both the American Immigration Council and Welcoming America. And this program allows communities to apply for support at a couple of different levels. One in a customized research report, and two through technical assistance over the course of a year in the creation of a multi-sector immigrant inclusion plan. So we're really excited that Global Cleveland was selected to receive a customized research report, which is what we are releasing today. This year, we're now in our 4th cohort, and there were a total of 19 communities selected, with 10 communities receiving the research report and technical assistance. So Cleveland is part of a really select group, and we're just happy to be working with all of you. So let's just dive into the findings of the report. I wanted to clarify that the report has 2 different geoscopes. For the majority of the report, it focuses on the geoscope of Northeast Ohio. So that includes the counties of Cuyahoga, Lake, Guagua, Summit, Medina, Lorain, and Portage counties. And then the second part of our presentation will focus particularly on Cuyahoga County. I also do want to note that for our purposes, when we refer to immigrants, we refer to anyone that was born, that was not born in the US, and also not to US citizen parents. So that does include immigrants who are naturalized US citizens, those with green cards, those that are here on visas, the undocumented population, those with DACA status, refugees. So looking at the immigrant population in Northeast Ohio, immigrants account for 5.7% of the population, which is below the national average of 13.6% of the population, but is slightly higher than the average immigrant population across the state of Ohio. So in Ohio, we did find that Northeast Ohio and that area is particularly diverse. When we looked at the population growth in Northeast Ohio, we found that a very interesting trend over time. So between 2014 and 2019, the overall Northeast Ohio area population actually decreased by 0.4%, and the immigrant population grew by 7.3%. So this means that without growth in the immigrant population, the decline in the region would have actually been greater, falling by 0.8%. This slide shows a few of the top countries of origin in Northeast Ohio. So a critical part of understanding this research is also understanding who immigrants are in Northeast Ohio. This slide shows that the top 5 countries of origin for immigrants in 2019 was India, Mexico, China, Ukraine, and Germany. The report itself, if anyone is interested, does include the top 15 countries of origin. So that further detail is included in the report. When looking at spending power and tax contributions of immigrants in Northeast Ohio, we found that immigrants are having a real concrete economic impact in this area. So we've found that immigrants in the area earned 5.5 billion in 2019 alone. And from that, over 520 million went to state and local taxes, 1 billion went to federal taxes. This left immigrants with 3.9 billion in spending power, which is disposable income that can be infused back into the local economy, when people are shopping at grocery stores, retail stores, eating and dining at restaurants and more. So this is a really important number to pay attention to about the economic contributions that immigrants make in the area. We see that immigrants contribute to a tax base that supports the region's infrastructure with a solid foundation of consumer spending that can go back into the local economy. So one area of focus that our report looked at was educational attainment. So we did look at the percentages of educational attainment for the foreign-born population compared to the US-born population. And we found that 40.8% of the foreign-born population aged 25 or above held a bachelor's degree, and 21.4% of the foreign-born population held an advanced degree. And we do have the comparative stats in the report that also shares that the US-born population in this area for holding a bachelor's degree, it was 30.5%, and then 11.3% of the US-born population in the region held an advanced degree. So we really do see that immigrants are using their education and expertise in an important way in this area. So all of this is great to know, but if immigrants are contributing to the region already, sometimes people ask, why is it important to include immigrant integration as part of a community and economic strategy for the region? And so as I alluded to earlier, when speaking about how there's a particular interest in our work in the Midwest, immigrants are going to play, and they are currently playing, a crucial role of any development strategy for a really simple reason. The US population is getting older. It's estimated that by 2065, the median age will be 42. Baby boomers are retiring at rapid rates, and there is a declining birth rate, a national declining birth rate. So this is leading to major shortages across industries, sectors, and in our workforce. When looking at the working age of immigrants the age groups of immigrants in Northeast Ohio, we found that immigrants are more likely to be of working age in Northeast Ohio, with 71.2% being of working age versus 63.3% of their US-born counterparts. So people of working age are critical to ensure that we have a robust workforce, despite the volatility of the past 2 years we are at this point, especially as we see communities and businesses opening up more and more. They are facing a real workforce shortage. One sector where over the years we have seen chronic shortage of workers is in STEM fields. So nationally in 2016, there were 13 STEM job postings published online for every one unemployed STEM worker. When taking a closer look at the Northeast Ohio region, we found that there were 12.8 STEM job postings published online for every one unemployed STEM worker. So these jobs have been particularly critical over the course of the past few years. When those jobs go unfilled, unfortunately, companies not only are unable to expand their operations and grow, but they also can't innovate, or they can't adapt in it, and they can't, quickly change to the evolving markets, which does represent an obstacle for a lot of people currently. When looking at immigrants in the labor force, we found that while 5.7% of the population, immigrants were 5.7% of the population, they actually were 6.1% of the employed labor force, and again, 12.2% of STEM workers, meaning immigrants are uniquely positioned to fill in some of those key workforce shortages that we're seeing. And then we also looked at key industries that immigrants were playing a role in. And so our report does dive deeper into other industries, but this slide includes the top 5 industries that hold the largest share of foreign-born workers. So we see that includes agriculture and forestry, manufacturing, education, professional services, and general services. And then we also found through this research report that that immigrants living in the Northeast Ohio area in 2019 helped create or preserve 7,200 local manufacturing jobs that would have vanished or moved elsewhere. So as workers and taxpayers, we can see the huge impact that immigrants are also making in supporting federal safety nets, which is critical to note within the context of the fact that nationally, again, our population is aging out of the workforce, so they will be increasingly relying on these programs. In Northeast Ohio, we found that immigrants contributed over 482 million to Social Security and more than 133 million to Medicare, and this was in 2019 alone. So additionally, to put this into a national context again, immigrants contributed 182 billion more to Medicare than they drew down between 1996 and 2011. So immigrants are more than just taxpayers and workers, they're also entrepreneurs, and that's another area that we wanted to look at in this research report. So entrepreneurship in the US is an interesting area that people are keeping their eyes on, and it does create, job creation and local economic activity. Across the country, we see that immigrants are more likely to be entrepreneurs, employing over 8 million Americans and generating 1.3 trillion in sales. And between 2005 and 2010, the rate of immigrant entrepreneurs nearly doubled. So particularly when looking at entrepreneurship in Northeast Ohio, we found that immigrants accounted for over 8% of all entrepreneurs, despite making up 5% of the total population in the area. So immigrant entrepreneurs are making significant contributions to the economy, both on the main streets of Northeast Ohio, as well as being heavy hitters in the business world. Across the country, 44% of Fortune 500 companies in 2020 were founded by either an immigrant or the child of an immigrant. And on average, each new American Fortune 500 company employs over 62,000 workers, which is 12% more than the average number of workers at non-new American Fortune 500 firms. So we're seeing immigrant entrepreneurs making a huge impact on both a local and a national scale. So one of the things that were particularly specific for this Gateways for Growth cohort was we wanted to take a look at immigrants in the frontline response and pandemic response, and immigrants that played an important role in essential industries. So while we do focus on strategic planning process and recommendations, we also look at ways of how immigrants have played an important role in this economic recovery, and also how we can focus on equitable response and recovery to be able to support this workforce. So in the Northeast Ohio region, we found that immigrants are 17.6% of agriculture workers, 9.3% of essential manufacturing workers, 9% of food manufacturing workers, 7% of essential wholesale trade workers, and over 6% of essential service workers. Another area that we looked at in this research report was naturalization rates for immigrants in Northeast Ohio. So we found that 57.7% of immigrants in Northeast Ohio have naturalized, with 14.5% who are eligible to naturalize. The reason that we pay particular attention to this information is that when immigrants are able to naturalize, they are often able to increase their salary potential, increase their career potential, and also have other opportunities available to them that is a benefit to the community at large. When looking at housing wealth in Northeast Ohio, we found that 61.1% of immigrant households own their home, compared to 65% of the US born. Immigrant households held a total property value of 8.7 billion. And then also, out of the immigrant population, about 38.9% of immigrant households were renters, paying 260 million in annual rent. The reason why we also pay attention to this statistic is the importance of immigrant contributions to the housing market and bringing value to the housing market in local communities when they are able to purchase homes and invest in, really committing to that community. And it really shows that they are, sticking to or building a home in that community and really laying down roots. So I'll shift here to just give a few stats about the research that about the immigrant population that we found in Cuyahoga County. We did find here that immigrants accounted for 7.4% of the population, which is a little bit lower than the national average, but is roughly 1.5 times more than the average immigrant population across the state of Ohio. And then when looking at population growth, we did find, interestingly enough, between 2014 and 2019, the overall Cuyahoga County population decreased by 1.6%, and the immigrant population grew by 3.1%. So once again, this means that without growth in the immigrant population, the total population would have decreased even more by 1.9%. When looking at spending power and tax contributions of immigrants, and particularly Cuyahoga County, we found that immigrants in the area earned $3.3 billion in 2019. And from that, $311 million went to state and local taxes, and more than $635 million went to federal taxes, which left immigrants with $2.3 billion in spending power. And with that, I will wrap up our presentation. I'm just going to share a few brief resources for anyone that might be interested. This slide shows our data interactive, which is called Map the Impact. And at the bottom of the slide is the URL that you can use to access this. It's www.maptheimpact.org. So this is a data interactive that has data on immigrants for all 435 congressional districts, all 50 states, and the top 100 metro areas. And it also includes all 3,000 plus US counties. So if anyone is interested in, not only taking a look at Ohio, but other states neighboring you and seeing how you relate to these other places, please feel free to access this website. And the other resource that I will share with you guys is our Gateways for Growth website, which Gateways for Growth, as a reminder, is the program and the grant that Global Cleveland applied to receive this research report. And on this website, you'll be able to see all of the past communities that have applied and received either a research report and or technical assistance in the support in the effort for them publishing a strategic welcoming plan for immigrants in their communities. So I'd encourage you to check it out if you're interested in seeing how other communities have approached this type of work. And with that, I will end it right there. I just want to say thank you for everyone. Thank you so much for our attendees and everyone that is interested in this program and also this research report. We also want to thank Global Cleveland for their interest and their partnership in this research report. On this slide are me and Nan, my colleague Nan's email information. If anyone has questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. And with that, we will open up to any questions, if there are any questions from attendees.
May I just ask you a quick question? Oops. Asma, may I ask you a quick question? And Nan, thank you. Joe Simperman here from Global Cleveland. Thanks for what I think is an outstanding piece of work. We're in a interesting time right now across the United States where congressional districts are being reapportioned. Ohio, as part of the Midwest and the Heartland, with other states, lost congressional representation. But it seems like from your numbers, the loss would have been even greater in the last decade of representation had we not had the increase I see in the county level and on other levels about the immigrant community moving in and being here. Could you speak to that? Because a lot of people, I think of representation as it's this group of people born here. This is really talking about population in general, and I think it has a clear effect on what we're talking about as a state completely.
I will thank you for your question, Joe. I will pass it over to Nan to speak upon the trends that they've been seeing on the congressional district and the congressional data through the Map the Impact data that we pulled together.
Yeah, I just want to kind of really emphasize the population trends that we're seeing in the region. So because we're seeing a decrease in the overall population in the region between 2014 and 2019. At the same time, we're actually seeing increase of the immigrant population. Just want to emphasize that without the growth in immigrant population, the decline of the overall population in the region would have been even greater, following by like 0.8%, meaning that with that kind of population trends in mind, it means that without all this new members of the local communities moving to the region, the overall population number would have seen an even greater decline, meaning that when we're seeing the representation in congressional districts, we will be seeing kind of like a negative impact on that in terms of losing kind of a political representation in that sense. And that really echoes with what we are seeing across the country in different regions and different districts. And we are really seeing the impact of like immigrants moving into the local communities that are experiencing population declines, but because of the new members who move in, who become active in community affairs, who become naturalized and become eligible to vote, and they are becoming a larger force to really help the local communities to voice their overall concerns and emphasize their issues in national politics and local elections too. So that's definitely what we are seeing in recent years. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Is that there's a question in the chat asking, can we tell which percentage of immigrant-owned businesses are in which sectors, and small versus medium versus large? And I'll allow you to handle that.
I think in the report, we have the breakdowns for immigrant-owned businesses for some of the industry groups. For example, the top one being in professional services and retail trade. So I think based on the sample size we're seeing for the region, I think there is actually more information that we can potentially provide for specific industries or specific sectors. But in terms of the size of the businesses, that's something that we don't, that basically like the data that we don't have from the data source that we're using for this report. Basically that we got most of the data from this report using the data from American Community Survey, but the survey mostly focused on immigrant-owned, basically like focus on immigrant business owners instead of like immigrant-owned businesses. So I think there are other data sources that actually look at the business themselves in terms of their sizes and number of their employees, and also, for example, their sales volumes and their revenues. But that we know another federal data source for that one, but that one unfortunately hasn't been really updated in recent years. But once we are able to get more latest information from that data set, where we become aware of the other data sources that we can use for this kind of analysis, we'll be able to provide more insights about kind of types of immigrant-owned businesses in terms of their sizes.
There was another question in the Q&A. I'll read it out. In the report, it shows the length of stay for limited English speakers is mostly over 20 years. Do we have research on language access plans across the region? So unfortunately, that was not included in this data menu, in this data report. We particularly looked at the economic and demographic contributions of immigrants in Northeast Ohio and Cuyahoga County. But I think that is something that maybe Global Cleveland might have more information on, and we could also check with our sources and our partners in the work that we do in Ohio to see if there is a place that has access to that, to those numbers of, you know, some detailed research on how many language access plans exist in the region. And I will, I think I'm not seeing any more questions. So I just want to remind everyone, thank you so much for this opportunity. And we're really proud and happy to be partnering with Global Cleveland on this research report. The research report is live. I included the link in the chat. And also, again, our emails are listed on the slide. So please don't hesitate to reach out if anyone has further questions. And thank you so much.